Hey guys, it's Ms. Billups, Ms. Erica Billups. Remember, because this is the adult marketing teacher only VIP PLC, we can be on a first name basis around here. So I'm Erica. I can't wait to find out your names, but obviously we are marketing teacher besties. And if there was a PLC where we met in person, we would definitely sit next to each other and write notes and roll our eyes because some of those things are extra, but we are in part 2 of our marketing classroom game series. The first one was about Fool's Gold, a game I came up with. And the second one is a take on Scattergories that I came up with that is marketing specific and meant to expand the brains of our students. And it's also some cross-curricular tie-ins with ELA and literacy, which I know is very important in my district right now and in my state is improving literacy. So anyway, we can incorporate that into the classroom is a good way to go. So again, let's get started on learning about marketing categories. All right, marketing Scattergories. So if you have never heard of Scattergories, it is a board game. It's been around forever. I know we used to play it. It had this really weird die that had I guess 26 sides, although I wonder, did it have like Z and X, and maybe it didn't have all the sides. But anyway, it was this weird die that you would roll and it would come up with a letter. And then you would have these cards with different categories on them, like cities around the world or dog names or favorite books or movies. And then every response, you would have a certain amount of time, and every response you would write down had to start with whatever letter you rolled, and everyone would have to do the same thing. Then once the timer went off, I don't know if it was 2 minutes, 4 minutes, but it was a fun game, family type game, friends game. And then you would go through, and if someone came up with the same answer as you, neither of you would get points for that game. But if you came up with a different answer than anyone else, you would get a point. And the way that Scattergories goes, and I'll talk about it a little more here, if you came up with a, say it was like beloved childhood, cartoon characters, and the letter was S, and you said strawberry shortcake, that would be 2 points because both words start with S, and that ties into this game too. But anyway, so it's a super fun game. So I found an online version of it that already existed in the world. I didn't come up with it. But what I did was I edited it and I changed it so it's appropriate for children in a classroom environment and is more marketing related than anything else out there. Okay, so Scattergories Marketing Edition. Here is how you play it. First thing I do is I split my kids into groups of 2 or 3. When I was going over Fool's Gold, I like more table groups. I like more people in the groups, but this one, it's a little more in-depth thinking. And so 2, max 3 in a group, I find is the way to go. Okay. And then I pass out sheets of paper, white paper, lined paper, it doesn't matter. And a pencil, 1 pencil per group because there's only 1 writer. And you can, they can figure out who's going to write each round, but piece of paper and a pencil to start. Okay. Next thing you do is you're going to pull up the Scattergories online game board. And let me pull that up for you quickly and I can show you what it looks like. The link is right here. Click here to pull up Scattergories online game. I'll also put it in the description. I made a tiny URL for it. So you're making sure you get my version of it. Because if you go to the general Scattergories online version that's out there, it's not student friendly. It's not necessarily student friendly. It's not that like everything's inappropriate, but there's definitely, I remember I was playing with my family and it was like type of brands of beer or like what you can order at a bar or I don't know, just things not classroom appropriate. So I came up with a version and this link is my version of it. And it is all classroom specific things. So you can click here or you can go to tinyurl.com/Scattergories marketing, I think is what it is. I'll put it in the link. Anyway, I'll go to it now. All right, here we go. Okay, so you can see this is what's going to come up. Now, over here is the letter that was potentially rolled. Okay, these black boxes here are the categories. You can see right now there's 12. Time is 120 seconds or 2 minutes and the play button. Now, what I recommend to do is before you get started, you're going to go down here, over here, and you're going to click the minus button to make it only 4 categories. 12 is way too many categories for our students to try and do successfully, and they'll just get frustrated with the game. But I find 4 is perfect. Once you limit it to 4 here, you're going to hit restart, and it will come up with just 4 categories. Here is the letter that you're going to roll. And remember, each of these categories is something either marketing related or student related, or something that students enjoy. So you'll come up, it'll be like brands of sneakers, things you can buy in a convenience store, traits of your favorite teacher, things that will get you an ISS or detention, depending on what your school calls it. They like that one. That one's funny. And every answer they come up with, they have to come up with 1 answer per category, and it has to start with the letter over here. Now, if it's a weird letter or a letter you're like, oh, that one's kind of tough, you just hit reroll and it comes up with a new one. So now it could be L, P, L, they really want to do. Okay, then what you do when you're ready to play. So let's go back here real quick. And okay, so going back here. So what you want to do before you hit play, you want each team to set up their paper like this, if you can see here. So they're going to number it 1 through 4. And on the top, they're going to put the letter as a reminder of what letter everything needs to start with. The first time you play this, they're going to be like, I don't get it. Because ask your class, do this test like I did and say, how many of you ever played Scattergories? Like you might get 1, maybe 1, if it's like a real like game family, but otherwise, no. Okay, so they're not going to get it. So you kind of have to give examples, but you also make sure they understand that this letter at the top is what everything has to stand for. Now, I do usually give them this example, and I think I put it under part 4, but I give this example before we start, and I say, okay, if the category comes up, things at a gas station that start with S, and then I say, okay, tell me, what are things at a gas station that start with S? And somebody might yell out Skittles and soda and slushies and Sprite. Perfect. Yes, all of those work. And then you say, oh, each of those would give you 1 point. But if you said something like super-sized Snickers, that would give you 3 points because each word starts with the letter S and there's 3 words. Or you could say sour apple slushy. Now, some people may not count that because there's like an A word in there, but I would give that 2 points. All right, I'm not going to be super strict about this. I just want them to get creative about it. Let me fix my camera. Sorry. All right. So you give them examples, and then you also tell them, if you say Skittles and somebody else comes up with Skittles, neither of you get points. So as you're writing it down and thinking, you need to not only think of something, but it also needs to be creative, something you don't think anyone else would come up with, and you need to kind of whisper so you don't give your ideas around. Okay, and after you say that, they get it. Sometimes also this first round I do as a practice round, so they're not frustrated with it. The other really fun thing that I do in my classroom to make it more cross-curricular and to tie in the literacy, I let them use adjectives as extra words. So they could say super sour slushy. Now, does that exist in the world? Probably not, but they use the word super and sour. Now, something like they could come up with salty, smooth Sprite. Now that doesn't make sense. Maybe salty Sprite I might give them just because it's like, okay, but like smooth Sprite. So it has to make sense, but also you'll start to see like them use like really push in their minds for like fun adjectives that somebody else isn't going to come up with. And I go with it. So sometimes they'll get like 5 or 6 points if they just do like a string of adjectives before whatever they want to say. It doesn't necessarily make sense for this gas station one, but you'll see like for the reason you got detention or ISS, and the word was S, they could have said like super sneaky, snitching in science. Okay. I would give them super sneaky, snitching in science. I would give them 4 points for that because they're thinking. Okay. And then and then as the rounds go on, they get more and more creative with the words, which I just think is fun. You don't have to do that in your classroom, but I think it's fun, and it ends up being funny. And then it just shows them really pushing themselves in literacy and words and thinking. One of my favorite examples was the letter was G, and it was things in outside, things you would find outside. And one of my students, who, it was super unexpected, but they said garden gnome. And I was like, yes, oh my gosh, you know what I mean? But like, it really pushes them. And you might be surprised by some kids who really are creative and push themselves, and shows a different side of them. And I like, and the way that this ties to marketing. So you're like, what does this have anything to do with marketing? If you've ever worked in a marketing agency like I've had, you know that you'll be on a call, you'll be called into a meeting, and you constantly have to come up with ideas. You do not have a day off from creativity. Sorry, let me fix this again. You don't have a day off from thinking. You don't have a day off from creativity. You constantly have to be on. You constantly have to have that brain working in a creative way to come up with the biggest and the best ideas possible. And this does that. This gets it going. It's a really good, 10-minute, depending on how many rounds you want to play. You could make it last the whole class, which I've done if I just need like a day of fun with the class. Or you could do it like 10 minutes in the beginning of class to get their brains going. But it's a good way to get their creative juices flowing. And it ties to marketing because you just constantly have to be thinking, and literacy and words and connecting random things together is such a huge part of marketing, making something out of nothing. The most successful marketers are the ones who can make something out of nothing. And sometimes I give examples about when I was on call with different clients, and they asked me to tie, I think it was like we were launching a new like computer mouse, because I did a lot in the technology space, consumer technology space, with baseball and like opening day of baseball. And I was like, like, oh my God. It was like, but you have to come up with ideas, and they're not all going to be winners, but you got to come up with something. You can't just sit there and be like, let me think on that and I'll get back to you. No, you want to kick off a brainstorming session. You want to come up with something. No, it was digital camera. That's what it was. It was digital cameras. I was working with Kodak, and we were launching a digital camera. It had 2 lenses. That was like really innovative. We're talking early 2000s. So Kodak that and tying it to baseball. And we ended up coming up with, we're like, okay, 2, baseball, the Twins. And sorry, my doggy ended up working with the Minnesota Twins. Let me pause this real quick to take 1 second. All right, back at it. Sorry. Mother's work is never done. If it's not the kids, it's the dog. If it's not the dog, it's the boyfriend, in my case, husband. Love y'all. Okay, so that's how Scattergories work. So you tell them, you got to think about it. That's what ties to marketing. All right, so then let's go back, and I'll go back to show you then how you actually play it. All right, so we're here, and it's time to play. And when I hit play, these categories are going to come off. Okay. And so I hit play and I say, okay, guys, in your marks, get set. I'm going to read them to you. 120 seconds on the board. Everything has to start with the letter L. So we have household chores, something you wear, reptiles or amphibians, and movies. Okay. And then I say it again, and I say just one answer for each. Answer as many as you can. Go through. Sometimes for this, like, reptiles, amphibians, you might have to say things like snakes and things you would find that are slimy and jump, and like frogs in that category. You might have to remind them depending on your class. Movies, you can say it can be a TV movie or a Netflix movie or something you'd see in the theater. Depending on your students, you might have to classify a little bit. Okay. Once all this is up, then I walk around, I give them hints depending on who is in the class. I might, whisper something in their ear to guide them on the right track, especially the first few rounds where they're trying to figure it out. Time is going down. I say, 70 seconds left. Okay, come on, let's do this. Once time is up and it gets to 0, they'll cover back up. Okay. And I say, pencils down, no more writing. Then we go back here. I'll go back here. And at this point, then I walk around the room and I start randomly. And I say, okay, over here, what did you say? Let's start with, I pick the top ones. Household chores. What do you have? Okay, perfect. Lint rolling. Perfect. 1. Another one says laundry. Perfect. Another one says loads of laundry. Perfect. 2 points. Now, both of them said laundry, but someone added loads in front of it. I'm not strict when it comes to that. I just like to see that I like to see them thinking about it. So all that we go through and I say, yep, 1 point, 2 points, 1 point, and they keep track. When we go, then I go to the next one. Okay, reptiles, amphibians, go. And they say lizard. And then someone says leaping lime green lizard. Okay, that's 3 points. You know, if that's how I work it, you don't, if you're saying that doesn't count, that's okay. You're a little stricter than me, and that's okay. I'm a little more open. I get it. Okay. When we're a little loosey-goosey in the room. Anyway, we do them all. Then I say, okay, add them up, write your number at the top for that round, circle it, and now start again. You know, turn the paper over, fold it over, 1 through 4. Here we go. We're going to start the new letter. And then I go back, and I'll show you real quick how to do that. So you're going to go back, and you're going to be here and you're going to do restart. And since you already changed it to 4, there'll be new categories, a new letter. You'll say, okay, write B at the top. On your marks, get set, go. You hit play. You say nicknames, tropical locations, types of drinks, type, which, you know, for me, I say beverages, type sodas and coffees, things that you love, and clothing brands. All right. And you go through again. And typically what I do, I end up doing 4 rounds. 4 rounds. Because the first round is going to be a little bit of a disaster, especially if it's the first time you ever played. They're not going to get it. And so the first time you play, whatever. Then the second round, they get it. By the third and fourth round, they are cooking. And especially if you allow the adjectives, they are on it and they love it. And it's exciting. So then you go through, you add it up again, and then you add up all 4 scores from each round. And that is the winning group. Okay. Now, if you need a tiebreaker, usually it's not that close, but if you need a tiebreaker, sometimes what I do is I just roll the letter die, and whatever comes up, I say, okay, you have 2 minutes to write down as many brands or companies that start with that letter. So if it was B, they could put Build-A-Bear or Burger King or Banana Republic. Okay. And they go down. Then we go through it same way we would normally do it, but I make it about brands, clothing brands, or I'll say as many restaurants as you can think of that start with, and then I'll roll a D, you know, and they're like Dunkin' Donuts. I don't know. My brain's fried. It's summertime. Anyway, you go down. So you can make it as much as you want to. All right. Then let's see. So you come up with that. So let me show you. Obviously, I'm going to share this with you. Here is the link here. If you click here is where you'll get my versions of the Scattergories game. Okay. You can also get to it by going to tinyurl.com/Scattergories marketing. And then also what I am going to do, let me pull it up for you. My dog is still going crazy. Oh my gosh. I also have the subplans version for you. Here it is, tinyurl.com/Scattergories marketing. And then I have the step-by-step written instructions so a sub could easily follow it with their class. And you can just make them do it a couple rounds, do 6 rounds if you want to. And because the kids love it. The kids really love this game. They get creative with it. And they love it. And it's a great last minute sub plan to do with the kids. Let's see. So all the links, all the descriptions for the actual presentation, the links, the sub plans will all be down in the description of this. So you can always go back and find it again, rewatch this. You can even share this video with your sub and have them watch it before class so they get a better idea of everything that's going on. Sorry about my dog. She is just losing her mind right now. But I'm about to end it anyway. So thank you guys. Next one will be, the next one in this series will be, ma'am. Oh my gosh, you have to see her. Hold on. Sorry, guys. She's a mess. Hi. Say hi. Indie girl, say hi. You want bark? Oh, you don't want bark. You just want to be on camera. Okay. The next one will be an escape room, a marketing escape room where basics of marketing. Sometimes I even do it the first week to build camaraderie. Sometimes I do it the second week. Sometimes I leave it as a sub plan as well. I also do it with my DECA groups, which is fun. But that will be part 3 of this series, probably coming tomorrow. Okay. Bye, guys. Have a great time.